And we welcome you into our first edition of lcpioneers.com Live, presented by PioStream for this week, week 19 of us having a show that you can watch live on Facebook Live. Go to lcpioneers.com/live, and you can watch all of our past shows archived at youtube.com/lcpios. We keep you connected with student athletes, coaches, alumni, and members from the Lewis and Clark College community at large, 4 days a week, Tuesday through Friday at 11:30 a.m. Pacific Time. Hi, everyone. I am Ryan Goff. I am the play by play voice and director of athletic communications for Lewis and Clark. We are the Pioneers out of Portland, Oregon, and a member of the Northwest Conference out of the NCAA Division III ranks, competing with 9 institutions, including ourselves, throughout Oregon and Washington. Opportunity for our student athletes to compete on a national scale, thanks to over 430 institutions nationwide in NCAA Division III, and with a robust overseas study program, our Lewis and Clark College students and student athletes alike opportunities to experience experiential liberal arts education on a global scale. It really is awesome to see how many programs there are and how many of our students do take advantage of those over the course of their 4 years at Lewis and Clark. We are excited in a few moments to bring in our guest today, a recently graduated student athlete from the Pioneer softball program. We'll talk to Lisa Kumasaka and see how, as a spring student athlete, her ending to her career, how she was able to kind of flow with all of the changes that happened mid March because of the coronavirus pandemic and still graduate summa cum laude in the biology program. What's ahead for her, too? And also, as we've seen develop since the late part of May, a lot of protests, too, stemming around systemic racism throughout this country. And those protests over George Floyd's murder and other murders of Black Americans still happening in the city of Portland. Lisa's from the Pacific Northwest, and I had an opportunity to hear from her and several other of our student athletes over the course of the early part of June about some things that they would like to see happen as, in her case, now a Lewis and Clark alumnus, but as Lewis and Clark students and student athletes. I'm so excited to hear her thoughts on that as well. And we'll bring her in a few moments so that we can have a conversation about that and also just hear what's next. Again, a biology major, so looking forward to a potential medical career as well. We invite you to get connected with us on Facebook Live. You can always leave comments below for us, whether you want to ask a question of our guests, say hi, or if you have a suggestion for a future guest. You can also follow us on Instagram and Twitter at LC Pioneers. And as I mentioned, man, the show keeps rolling. We move into week 19, have shows dating back all the way until the end of March, and excited already because we rescheduled our head cross country coach, Matthew Burrow, which means after tomorrow's interview with head football coach Jay Losi, we will have had all of our program's coaches on at least once. And so we're going to continue to bring them on a recurring basis. So Coach Burrow will be our first repeat coach to visit with us on lcpioneers.com live. And so with that said, let's bring in our guest for today. Again, a recently graduated student athlete for the Pioneers. We welcome in Lisa Kumasaka on lcpioneers.com live. Lisa, appreciate you taking the time to join us on this Tuesday. And I am very much a guy who loves the cloudiness of the Pacific Northwest. I know you grew up here. That's my preference. So summer is not my ideal weather time. I'm curious, how are you holding up over the summer? What have things been like since commencement in early May?
Yeah, I mean, the weather's actually been really beautiful here, which is surprising. But after graduation, the last few months kind of felt like a blur, but I lived in Portland about 2 months after graduation, and now I am back up in Seattle.
And it was a very odd ending to the spring 2020 semester, which so happened to be the end of your time as a Lewis and Clark student athlete. It happened in the middle of the softball season. I want to get to the competitive side first, but give us a glimpse inside some of the adjustments you had to make as learning went remote, people couldn't come on campus. What were some of the changes and how did you cope with those?
Yeah, so I think emotionally it was pretty difficult having our season end, but then also being separated from friends a lot quicker than I had originally anticipated, thinking that I had until late May to say goodbye to everybody. So that was really hard. But FaceTime, Zoom made it really easy to stay connected to teammates and friends. So that was really awesome. And then also moving from a classroom to online was really difficult, especially for me because I loved being in the library and studying there, and it felt like I was way more productive being outside of my house and being able to study on campus and actually with other people. So it was a lot more difficult to stay motivated, especially since we found out with the season and graduation won't be happening anymore. It was hard to stay motivated, but it was nice having my housemates around who definitely kept encouraging me, and we all studied together and set aside a specific room for studying and taking tests and everything. So it was different, but we made it work.
Yeah, may do. I mean, adaptability, right? And as a student athlete, we've heard, even in the best of circumstances, that's something that we hear about how, student athletes prepare, over 4 years at Lewis and Clark is adaptability, being able to handle the rigors of the academics and such. When you look back on your senior season, describe, the moment you found out the season was going to be postponed, eventually canceled, and, some of the emotions, some of the moments that you went through with your team.
Yeah, so when we found out, our whole team was gathered outside of Pamplin Sports Center, and Coach Cyrus came of the gym out of the meeting with all the coaches and kind of just broke it down that the NCAA was canceled the championships, and basically there was no real point in continuing our season, especially since other teams from the Northwest Conference had already announced that they were dropping out. So kind of said that it was over right then, and everyone just fell silent. Didn't really know how to react, and I remember I think I was the first one to start crying on our team, but then everyone kind of started breaking down, and we just kind of stood there or sat, I guess, in an emotional team meeting, and then went to Salt and Straw to try and alleviate our pains.
There's not many better places that you could go to than Salt and Straw, especially in its proximity to campus. A great ice cream place in the Portland area. And what was tough for me is I look so forward to the spring seasons because while there's so many sports going on, it is also one of my best chances to really focus in on watching games. And I do spend a lot of time with softball and baseball because of how heavily statistics are required in those sports. And so I bring that up because I feel like I get to know your team really well, especially because softball is such a big part of the Pio Stream crew too during the fall and winter seasons. So I say all of that because I looked at the way the season started and I felt like there was going to be something special happening. How did you feel through the first couple weeks of games and where this team was headed?
Yeah, I would say that the biggest word to describe how I was feeling was excited, because I looked at our team and saw a huge amount of potential. I think, especially with a huge freshman class coming in, I felt like they all added a lot to our team, and we started off the season playing George Fox, and we didn't win a game, but we stayed with them super competitively all 4 games of the weekend, which was really encouraging to me because from freshman year to sophomore year, we consistently kind of got uh, killed by George Fox a lot of the times, and being able to hang with them and staying really competitive throughout all 4 games was really encouraging to see for me. And I knew that our team could definitely compete with all of the teams in the Northwest Conference really well. And then we played Whitworth, and we were able to take 3 of 4 from Whitworth, which hasn't happened in I don't know how long, but they are consistently the top of our conference. So being able to win that series was amazing, and I felt like we were really going places this year, especially with how well we had started off this season.
We're talking with Lisa Kumasaka, a recently graduated student athlete from Pioneer Softball on lcpioneers.com live. You had three, including yourself, in your senior class: Frankie Warden, Savannah Dixon. What have those two meant for you on your journey, and just some of the highlights being around this team from just a camaraderie standpoint?
Yeah, so I think from a softball standpoint, they're both incredibly strong players, both very competitive, motivated, and really always want to give their all for themselves, but more importantly for the team. Sav is a pitcher, and she always held it down on the mound, was always very emotionally constant for the team. She would always pick other girls up, was always there for me. was a great silent leader, I think, in the way that she was able to just bring like a calm and peaceful mindset to the team. And Frankie was an awesome outfielder. And then recently this year, she was our DH or designated hitter, and she always really kept up the offense. She was constantly hitting balls hard, incredibly competitive, always encouraging to younger girls. And so those two have been incredible leaders for me and for the team. And then from just a friendship standpoint, they are two of my closest friends, two of my best friends that I've left college with, and we've been on trips together, and we've gone through all 4 years of college together. I've lived with Frankie, and we've just spent so much time together, and so I think they've always had a very special place in my heart as friends, and we've kept in touch through FaceTime throughout quarantine, and it's been awesome just encouraging each other on the field and then off of the field with our future directions with different careers.
Now, what could have been has kind of been a topic since the spring season was canceled. You are one of the NCAA Division III's active leaders in stolen bases, and very likely would have set a single season record for yourself, if not the program, had the season continued. When did you know you were really good at stealing bases?
um, I think maybe freshman year, I guess, Coach Cyrus would not really say anything. She would just give me the steal sign, and I would just go for it. And then she would just keep doing it, and it just worked out. So I guess at that point in time was when I realized I was good at it.
Oh, you were for sure, and it would have been a big deal to see if you could have kept going this whole season, and to see what number you would have finished out for your career. Certainly. That said, it was really a marvelous career, and I think we really appreciate having you on campus, which makes me think to ask you, originally, what was it about Lewis and Clark that appealed to you? Why did you ultimately choose Lewis and Clark? And especially now that you're graduated, how did some of the hopes coming in freshman year meet your expectations by the time you've left?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest factors in making my decision was being able to actually do a campus tour and stay over with the team. The first time that I stayed with the Lewis and Clark softball team, I immediately felt really welcomed. Coach Cyrus was awesome. She took me around campus, always made sure that everything I needed was there to answer questions, was always willing to respond to emails about the recruiting process. Also, a big factor was the location of Lewis and Clark. I loved how close we were to the city and just the accessibility that we had to shopping or food or anything like that. I also loved the campus itself. I mean, it's beautiful, and I figured if I'm going to walk around a place for 4 years, I might as well like what I'm looking at. Um, so those were some of the biggest factors in making my decision, and then also the small class sizes were something that really appealed to me. I felt like I was able to really foster this connection between me and professors, which is something that I don't think I would have been able to do at a big state school per se. I loved that the professors knew my name, they knew what I was interested in and my future plans, and always were willing to check up on me. So that was something that was that I really, really appreciated about Lewis and Clark.
Well, and there's a community building aspect too that I really enjoy about being a staff member at Lewis and Clark. And one thing that I noticed was when the protest started with George Floyd's murder, how important it was for me in my work to learn what being an ally and being an anti-racist is compared to just being not racist, for instance. It involved me doing some research and realizing, I wanted to be able to understand, what students and specifically in my role with athletics, student athletes expected of me, and us as a department to try to help with systemic racism and make that something that is better for our black students at Lewis and Clark. You were someone who responded, and I really appreciate you taking time when I asked that question. We're in higher education, so I guess my thought, Lisa, is to ask you, when it comes to racial justice, how does education play a role in your mind?
Yeah, I think that education is incredibly important for each individual and where they're at, because I think that everybody, whether they know it or not, have they have implicit biases against specific people, whether that be race, gender, sexuality, and um, just becoming educated on those topics and even the language surrounding those hot topics nowadays will get you a lot farther in understanding kind of what certain individuals and BIPOC individuals are undergoing in their lives, and being better educated on those topics will help you become a better ally, and like what you said, becoming actually anti-racist versus just someone who's not racist.
Resources being really valuable in that respect because you did a nice job sharing with us, organizations that we should have attention on and how to support black-owned businesses and businesses owned by people of color. It doesn't sound like it necessarily has to be within curriculum, right? This is something that, as us as a higher institution, education institution, we've shared these resources from groups like ASLC, right? You can
Mm-hmm.
find those lcpioneers.com/BLM resources. Why do you find it to be something valuable in the terms of supporting Black-owned businesses and making sure that that is something that people choose to do?
Yeah, so I think that that comes with everyday decisions and being very conscious of your Black brothers and sisters and being able to support them, because oftentimes I think, especially Black voices are drowned out in media, and they're portrayed a specific way on TV, in movies, and that just kind of encourages those biases against perhaps supporting these Black-owned businesses, or not even knowing that they're there, and even and when you're buying just everyday things, like making those conscious decisions of possibly supporting a Black-owned business rather than the big corporations.
She's Lisa Kumasaka joining us on lcpioneers.com live. We're on the air Tuesday through Friday, 11:30 a.m. Pacific time, and you can watch all of our past interviews available youtube.com/lcpios, and encourage you to do so too. Again, since the late part of May, early part of June, we've had opportunities to have these kind of conversations with student athletes and coaches. So there are those on demand at our YouTube page, youtube.com/lcpios. You're graduated, your competitive collegiate career is over. Is softball still going to be part of your life, or is that kind of a closed chapter in your book?
I do think that my softball career is over, but I'll definitely be supporting Lewis and Clark's softball program in any way that I can. And my dad actually brought up that if I go to medical school, I technically still have a year of eligibility. So who knows?
Yeah, and you mentioned that medical school, so that sounds like it's on the horizon. What's the process? Kind of where are you at right now? What's ahead, and ultimately, what's your goal?
Yeah, so I've submitted a primary application to a bunch of different medical schools, so I'm kind of waiting to hear back from that. I recently took my MCAT, so the medical admissions test, and I think that for right now, this is technically my gap year, so I'll be hopefully volunteering and working as a medical scribe while I wait to hear back from schools.
Well, I just need you to keep open the possibility that if I need a rec shortstop center fielder who can steal bases, you'll at least give me 1 year after eligibility, I hope, right?
Yeah,
Recreational softball.
definitely.
I appreciate that. And I can't say enough about your parents, too. They were super supportive of us, and your dad taking so many great photos for us, too, many of which you saw in the show. That was invaluable. So he's also welcome back, too. Even if you're not playing, he can take some more pictures for us, too.
Oh, he'd love to.
Lisa Kumasaka, thanks so much for your time on lcpioneers.com live. Yeah, that was a good conversation with Lisa. Really, strong leader and a fun presence, and somebody who just really achieved so much at her time in her time at Lewis and Clark. I really enjoyed the conversation with her, and again, really grateful to her and all of the student athletes who responded, because I had asked, about some opportunities for me to grow within the world of anti-racist actions, and some things to be aware of too, because one big component of the area of our department that I control is our social media presence too. So being able to have strong ideas on what we can do to support Black Lives Matter, and she certainly was someone who helped us out with that, and also appreciate her bringing her voice to our platform, because our student athletes definitely are someone I want to have use this platform to have their voices heard. that was fun. I'm looking forward to all the things that she's going to be able to do. She'll be a fun alumnus to bring back on the show down the road, perhaps when, like she said, she might be a surgeon, which will be really fun to track. Hang with us this week. It's a big week. We have a lot of our current student athletes and coaches for the rest of the week, including our last coach who's not been on the show yet, head football coach Jay Losi. He's entering his sixth season at the helm of the Pioneers, a five-time Northwest Conference Coach of the Year. And then we'll have a very golf-focused end of our week on Thursday. Cameron Ford joins us. She is the former Lewis and Clark and Northwest Conference, rather, freshman of the year. And then Nick Lombardi will join us, a two-sport athlete for golf and men's basketball. He's had an appearance on American Ninja Warrior. He's very heavily involved in the entrepreneurship program. So excited to talk to him about all of the things that keep him busy on Palatine Hill as well. So until we talk to you again tomorrow, as we do Tuesday through Friday, 11:30 a.m. Pacific time on Facebook Live, linked easily at lcpioneers.com/live. I'm Ryan Goff. Big thanks to Lisa Kumasaka for joining us. Big thanks to you for watching and having fun with us this morning. We'll talk to you again tomorrow for more lcpioneers.com live. You can see our archive shows, youtube.com/lcpios. And until we talk to you again tomorrow, goodbye, everybody. Thanks so much.
My favorite spot on campus is like right outside the Dovecote, little benches, and there's flowers growing there, and you can get a little coffee at the Dovecote and sit there.
My favorite spot on campus is definitely the weight room. I get that everybody loves like the gardens or the manor house, but our facilities for athletics here are actually amazing too, and the weight room is definitely my favorite spot.
My favorite spot on campus would either be the glade outside of the athletic facilities or South Campus.
What is my favorite spot on campus? I really like the back porch of the manor house. It looks out on Mount Hood, and on a clear day, it's super beautiful just to sit around with friends.
Hi, I'm Nick Lombardi. Something I've learned at Winterim this year is how to communicate a vision.
My biggest takeaway from Winterim is probably the networking. Getting to talk to everybody, connect with people for the future is one of the most valuable things, and I did Winterim last year, came back for more this year.
I think a way in which my liberal arts education has really helped me and my group formulate our ideas is that concept of critical thinking and having many different backgrounds, me being an econ major and my two group mates being chemistry majors. We really get that well-rounded background, well-rounded ideas.
I think overall it's absolutely worth doing. You find yourself not only being more prepared for, say, this next semester, on top of being more prepared for life in general.